The Battle of Midway, it was a key turning point in history because it changed the tide of the Second World War and therefore changed the world. It was a key battle and gave the Americans strength and confidence for many battles to come. June 6, 1942 was truly a remarkable day.
During some of the battles, what
when the Japanese bombed us quite regularly. When we were down on this little island next to Guadalcanal, it had an odd name called Funafuti. And our early mission, we flew from there. We had to expect them to come and bomb us. And most of the time during the air raid, you got in a foxhole because that island was only about a half a mile wide and a little over a mile long, except for a small end of it that run out into the lagoon there. But and so whenever bombs hit the island, they weren't too far away. And I did have a couple close calls in there. I remember one time there was I think they said there was 28 Japanese bombers come over, and one of them, our tents were set up on the seawall because it had the runway through the middle, and the seawall was flattened out, and we had our tents, and our foxholes up near our tents. And I remember this one plane, they carried 6 bombs, the Japs. And they were going off right down the seawall, and each one was getting closer to the foxhole out of there. And it was sure a relief when the last one, I was counting them, it went off on the other side of it.
Over the course of the battle, the Japanese lost a whopping 4 carriers, 5 heavy cruisers, 3 destroyers, 275 planes, and 3 battleships. Comparing this to the United States forces, which only lost 1 carrier, 33 planes, and 1 destroyer. The huge difference between these two numbers clearly shows why the Americans ended up the victors.
The man that was in that, he lived over here at Antigo. He was, after the war, I think he operated a funeral home. And his son wrote a book about that island of Chichijima I was telling you, that book called Flyboy. I don't know what it.
Check that out.
And it tells all about how the Japs treated the people there and all. Because he wrote it from the information that the government would release. I think 20 years after the war, they wouldn't release a lot of the stuff. They was afraid that people would be too upset about the way the Japanese did things, and it would be harder to
forgive them,
for the occupation and all to operate if people were still angry at the Japanese. They wanted. Like 20 years later, they started releasing the information, and that's where he wrote it all from government records. And so it was quite interesting. Also, I was in what you call the 11th Bomb Group. It was a bomb group was made up of 4 bomb squadrons, and you have a service squadron, a headquarters squadron, and it makes up a group. And one of our planes in the early part of the war, it went down halfway between Hawaii and an island called
Midway?
Now I'm trying to think about Palmyra, and it went in, and there were 3 people escaped out of the island, out of the plane, when it crashed in the ocean. The other 3 were perished with it. They went down with the plane. And they got in a life raft, and 2 of them lived, and 1 of them died during their ordeal. But they floated for 47 days, the longest anybody ever lived in a life raft. And then when they did float into a Japanese island, the Japanese put them in prison camp and kept them for 30 months in the prison camp.
One thing that shocked me the most was the Japanese resilience, because even in the face of defeat, they kept fighting in belief that they could still win. Their loyalty to their emperor is truly remarkable.
And there's a book been written about it. In fact, I have the book, but I loaned it out to the guy. It's called Unforgiving.
I think I've heard of that book.
And Lou Zapparella was the guy that spent the 47 days, him and his pilot, but it was quite an ordeal. They was lived on just a couple fish, a couple birds that they caught, and it all was eaten raw because they had no way to cook. And they did have water because they improvised some plastic sheets that was in the life raft to where when it rained, the water they would get it in a container, and they kept saving all every time they get a little rain. So because they had went without water for pretty near a week when they finally got a rain in there, which I think was helped save their lives then. And Lou was a gold medal winner in the Olympics at 1936 at Berlin. He was a distant runner, and he won. Youngest guy ever to win a gold medal. He was only, I think, 18 at the time, or 17. And then by the time the war broke out, he was like 22 or 23. I didn't know it till I read his book. He was at Ellington Field at the same time I was there in Texas. But he was in the cadet squadron. I was in the squadron in charge of maintenance. So, but it just seemed funny when I read it. It seemed he had been, because he was in a different squadron in our group. So I didn't realize. I just knew who he was. But I did fly search missions for when they were searching for if there's any survivors, which is, to me, was about the most boresome job that I got.
The Battle of Midway clearly shows that hard work and dedication can definitely change the world.